everyone. Olga, you did a fabulous job of setting the theme for the next few days and of reminding us again how the importance of Ukraine and the importance of the world supporting Ukraine and the people of Ukraine, not just now, but after peace, through reconstruction to vitality, which I know will come. So I want to bring this down just a little bit to us and what we can do as fearless women diplomats and how we can do it. You know, in this world has become so strident. There's so much conflict everywhere, and even when there isn't war, even in my own country, people are taking very strident positions, and it seems like no one needs to work together. So the need for diplomacy is more crucial than ever before. But luckily, half the world has phenomenal skills to bring to bear, and that, of course, would be women. That's us. And we need to step up to the plate. So very often we associate diplomacy with the realm of advocacy in business and in government and international relations, but I'm going to challenge that notion. It's not confined to diplomatic missions or high-level negotiations. Diplomacy is a mindset. It's an approach, and it's a skill set that we all have and that we can all improve. As professional women, actually just as women, we have to summon very often immense strength and determination and resilience. It's just a matter of course. But we can go further. We can learn how to be fearless diplomats. I actually don't think Olga needs to learn that. I think she's already there. But many of us can improve our skills. And what do I mean by that? I mean, it's time to pick up your voice even more often. To change what's not working, to open up doors that have been closed, and very importantly, to create new communities of respect where once there was only fear and probably hatred. It means the courage to engage in open and respectful dialogue, even in the face of disagreement. And it means actively seeking to build bridges and forge connections with others, regardless of their backgrounds. And this is very, very difficult, and I've seen this so often in other countries in conflict and transition, where it's very hard to see the other person's point of view. So when one thinks about fearless diplomats, you might come up with names like Gro Brundtland, who was 3 times the Prime Minister of Norway, or maybe even in our country, our former Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, or Melinda Gates, or even Malala. These are names we all know, and they are indeed, or were indeed, fearless diplomats, and they've done extraordinary things in this world. But I have other names that I'd like to share with you, and when I think of fearless diplomats, of course I think of the women of Ukraine, and I think of the women of Iran, and I also think about women I'm going to tell you a little bit about. Kekenya Nataya, Hawa Abdi, Monica McWilliams, and Razia Jan. And as I said last night, Vital Voices has trained over 20,000 women change makers across 185 countries. We're building a very powerful global network. There are, as you know, there's a chapter in Ukraine, there are chapters in other countries who are here today, and we should have many more. So let me tell you about a couple of these women. I'm going to begin with Dr. Hawa Abdi. Hawa was from Somalia. She was the first woman gynecologist in Somalia. And she had a family land, and she decided to build a clinic. So she built a clinic and was going about her business, and then war came to Somalia. And all of a sudden, people started moving towards her camp, refugees, and her family land became a refugee camp for 90,000 people. She had to build more facilities, but somehow she found a way to feed 90,000 people, to build a hospital, to build actually 2 hospitals, and to take care of all of these refugees. And one day, Hawa was taken captive by the rebels. She was taken hostage, and they said they would kill her. But she was fearless, and she negotiated her way out of the kidnapping, and she made the rebels apologize in writing. Amazingly fearless. Second person is Kakenya Nataya. Kakenya is a Maasai. She's from Kenya, and as a little girl, she wanted nothing more than to be educated. And we've talked this morning already about the importance of education, but girls were not educated in her tribe, and girls had to suffer FGM, female genital mutilation, by the time they were 12 years old, and she was to undergo it. But Kakenya said to her father, "I'm going to run away, and I'm going to bring down the reputation of this family. You are going to be shamed. I will not undergo FGM unless you allow me to go to school and finish my education." So her father agreed. She underwent FGM, that horrible, brutal process. She underwent FGM, but Kakenya has gotten a master's degree, a PhD, and she has built not 1, but 2 schools in her hometown in Kenya now, because she negotiated her way through a horrible process. The third person some of you may know, especially those of you from Ireland, is Monica McWilliams. Monica is from Northern Ireland. There was so much conflict. The Protestants and the Catholics were fighting one another, and finally there was a peace treaty. And then there was the process of negotiating the peace treaty. And guess what? No women. There were no women in the process. So Monica and her women friends decided that they would run for office because that was the only way to get to the peace table. They ran, they won, to their great shock. They won, and they were then at the peace table, and it was the women, Monica and her women friends, who brought the men together and caused, finally, the Good Friday Agreement. That was 25 years ago. There's been peace in Northern Ireland ever since, and hopefully that will remain the case forever. And finally, near and dear to my heart, is Razia John. As someone, I think, said, I chair the board of a girls' school in Afghanistan. Before the Taliban came in, we had 1,000 girls in our school. They ranged in age from 4 to 21. When the Taliban came in, they closed the schools for a few weeks. Then they said you could reopen the schools. We did. And then they said everyone could go back to school. So all the girls went back to school. On that day, an hour after all the girls were in school, the Taliban said no girl over the age of 12 can go to school. So all the girls over the age of 12 had to go home. And they've not been able to go back, sadly, since, and they probably won't until there's a change in Afghanistan. So we went from 1,000 girls to 500 girls. But Razia said, she's an Afghan American, she said, just wait, we're gonna negotiate getting more girls into the school. So when school reopened after a holiday, all of a sudden, 200 families were out in front of the school with their little girls who wanted to go to kindergarten. So we went from 500 to 700 girls in the school. We have 700 girls going to school in Afghanistan right now, which is really amazing. And it's because Razia negotiated with the Taliban over and over and over. And one day the Taliban said to her, you know, girls shouldn't be going to school, only boys should go. You need to teach boys or you should get out of Afghanistan. the boys are the brains of Afghanistan. And Razia said to the Taliban, "You're really crazy," she said. "The girls are the eyes of Afghanistan, and the men are blind." So, fearless diplomacy is not about being a pushover. It's not about compromising your values, but it is about having the strength to stand firm in your beliefs and be open, though, to making changes as you have to. And I would say that there are 4 things that we need to do in order to be better at diplomacy. One is to cultivate self-awareness. We have to look at our own biases. You know, what do we think, and are we really seeing all of the sides of something? And we have to embrace diversity and inclusivity, and that's very, very difficult, especially during and after a conflict. But you know, a couple days ago, before I left Washington, D.C., I was at an event for the Washington Ireland program where we bring Catholics and Protestant college students from Northern Ireland and Ireland to the United States for the summer, and they learn diplomatic skills, they learn conflict resolution skills, and they learn leadership skills. And the session was called Pinch Me. You know, those pinch me moments where you can't believe you're actually in a situation and it's just so exciting to you. So there were 4 people up on the program talking about their pinch me moments, and the 2 that just so struck me were the first girl who happened to be my intern, as a matter of fact. She said, "You know, I'm a Protestant, and I never really met a Catholic until this program." Can you believe this? This is 25 years after the Good Friday Agreement, and a person is saying, "I never met somebody of the opposite faith in my community. They live across the street from each other, but they really didn't speak to one another." And she said, without this program, without really me having an opportunity to meet Catholics in a different way, I would have completely lived my life in the wrong way. And the other woman said, "I'm a Catholic, and there's a vote that's going to come up soon, maybe not so soon, probably 10 years or so from now, for a united Ireland, which would mean bringing the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland together, and people will have to vote on it." And she said, "Until I met the Protestants in this program, I might have voted one way, and I would have been wrong. Now," she said, "I'm going to vote another way, solely because I've spent all this time listening to the other side." So powerful, just so powerful. These are young people, you know, which is great, because it's the younger generations that are really going to make the difference. The second thing is we have to practice active listening. This is not necessarily easy, especially when we all have very strong opinions about a lot of things. But I will tell you that the best advice I ever got in my entire life was from the top salesman at IBM. He was a friend of mine, and he said, "Susan, if you want to win the sale, if you want to win the argument, you have to listen 80% of the time, and you have to speak 20% of the time in that order." It was a really, really important lesson for me. I practiced it all of my life. The third is to develop emotional intelligence. It's so important that we manage our own emotions and that we think through how we're responding to things. And by acknowledging how we feel, even though it might not be how the other person feels, you can get through all kinds of difficult conversations with grace and resilience. And a person that really struck me as having enormous emotional intelligence during these past couple of weeks was Elena Svitolina from the Ukraine, and in her Wimbledon quest, even though she didn't get all the way to the finals, every time she spoke with such emotional intelligence. She was such a credit because she always spoke about her country. She always spoke about the competition in a very respectful way. she was such a credit to herself and to her country. I was so impressed with her. Not to mention she's a fabulous tennis player. And finally, of course, you have to embrace lifelong learning, and Olga's made that possible for you here, and I know you all embrace it already, but it's just so important to know. And as you do that, you know, it's not just something important, it's not just that you go to a conference, it's that you really learn from the people who are there, people who you would never meet in your life, people who are completely different cultures, and the most important thing is to communicate as much as you possibly can, even if you don't speak the language. So this morning, as I was thinking about what I was going to say and the importance of, well, actually, let me begin by saying this. Last night, a wonderful person said to me, "Hope springs eternal," which is so true. And it's something that we have to hold close to our heart. And I was reminded of this beautiful poem that the poet Maya Angelou wrote for the inauguration of President Bill Clinton some years ago. I'm going to share it with you. Lift up your eyes on this day breaking. Give birth again to your dreams. Women, children, men, take this day in the palm of your hands and mold it into the shape of your most private need and sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for a new beginning, and don't be wedded forever to fear. The horizon leans forward, offering you space for new steps of change. So here, on the pulse of this fine day, have the courage to look up and out. And I know you will. Thank you.